Our next speaker will pick up 10 minutes of our time because we've got a very important announcement at 12:50. Bryce, strangely enough, is an EV journalist. He's the Secretary of the Australian Electric Vehicle Association. He's been in it for a long time. He's previously with the Renew Group. He also mentioned yesterday that if you join today, you get the magazine from Renew as part of your membership. And one of our new members gave me this document this morning, which I'm happy to share as the AEVA Electric Vehicle News issue 237, which is the complete guide to EVs. And the man gave it to me and said, you should mention this. So I did. So, all of that's free to download from the website. To address the basics of charging at home, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Bryce Gayton.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm about to do what I was told in my very first lesson when I did Dip Ed. Absolutely never do, which is race through a presentation and probably avoid the eyes of the audience trying to get through really, really fast because I've been told I've got to save 10 minutes. Okay, so quickly, I cover some EV terminology. EVs are electric vehicles. BEVs, that's your battery electric vehicle. FEV, that's your plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. HEV, that's your hybrid electric vehicle, like the old Priuses and Insights. Fuel cell electric vehicle, otherwise known as the hydrogen vehicle, which is basically well, you heard about them. I won't go much into detail now. Plug-in electric vehicles, and ICE, occasionally I refer to the end of the ICE age, internal combustion engine. I do them as pictures, and EVSE, which I often mention and will throughout this presentation, is electric vehicle supply current, what you plug into the car in order to charge it. In diagrams, that's pretty much what it is. The two on your stage right, stage left are your plug-in electric vehicles, and on your right are your hybrids and your fuel cells, which are not plug-in electric, but they are still electric vehicles. So occasionally I'll say a plug-in vehicle, so that's a plug-in hybrid, which have a petrol motor plus the batteries, or the full battery, which is the BEV, battery electric vehicle. So I will run an exam at the end of this session on those terminologies. Try and remember them. Okay, EVSE, electrical vehicle supply equipment, that basically is just an automatic. For the AC ones, the ones that run off a household power supply, unlike the ones that we just talked about as with the Tritium, which are the big DC ones, which obviously were far too big for a power supply, they were pulling 500 amps or more each. Your average house has probably 64 amps in total on a single phase. They're pulling 500 amps three-phase. So you wouldn't talk about DC at home, but AC is what I'm talking about now. For AC, it's basically an automatic power point. You plug it in, talks to the car says, I'm an electric car, I can draw so many amps. The EVSE says, I can give you 16, you're telling me you want 32, but I'm only giving you 16. So it says, okay, I'll take 16. And that's all it does, just a bit of talk and starts charging. So that's what an EVSE is all about, and that's what I'm talking about for your homes. Okay, when you're preparing your home for your new arrival, you need to understand what your house may or may not be capable of delivering, and you also need to know what your car may or may not want, and you also need to know what you actually need. So I'm going to talk about a variety of steps to thinking about what's the best way to charge your car at home. So, first of all, you need to assess your house electrics. Secondly, part of that is what charging speed you actually want or need. If you're only driving 30 k's a day, you don't need to put in a 7 kilowatt home EVSE. You may only need just an ordinary power point. Has the house in fact got enough capacity to deliver that extra power? So in case you actually want 7 kilowatts, which is 32 amps, and your household supply may only be 32 in total, we may need to do some massaging of the house wiring or whatever. I'll talk more soon. So once you've decided what you want and how much power is available to do it, and maybe you need to upgrade a house in case you need more, then you can choose your EVSE charging mode and current and then prepare to install it. Preparing to install it involves deciding where to position it and choosing which one to buy depending on that position. So they're the sort of steps I'm going to follow through in the rest of this presentation. I'll skip this one for a moment. This is basically a list of the different cars available and what sort of rates they use, but I'll, in the interest of saving some time. By the way, if anybody wants this presentation, you're more than welcome to email me. I'll put the presentation, the last slide has my email address on it. So, assessing your electrics, this is probably the most important one. What spare capacity is in your switchboard? Questions to ask. Is your home less than 20 years old? And has it been fully rewired in the last 20 years? If you have an old switchboard like you have on the right, you'll probably need to upgrade that switchboard because it's probably only a 32 amp supply and you can't put fuses on a house anymore. You must put circuit breakers. Those old federal boards are a bastard to work on. I'm an electrician. Every time I see one of those, it's just new switchboard. It's quicker and much cheaper to actually put a new switchboard in with circuit breakers than it is to actually try and modify that. I've tried. It's a disaster. On the other side is a picture of a PowerPoint that I pulled out of a house that's older. It was about 40, 50-year-old with, let's go back one, with rubber insulation on the wiring. And rubber, as you know, perishes. That's the old VRS, vulcanised rubber sheath, and that was just disintegrating. That's what I pulled off the wall and looked at that and went, yes, you got your very last millicents worth of money out of your cabling, because I'm sure the house would have burnt down tomorrow if I wasn't rewiring it. But that's what can happen with those old wires. The EVSE is not necessarily the cause of you needing to rewire or spend more money fixing up the wiring, but it can be a trigger sometimes when the electrician comes in and goes, you've got an elderly switchboard that may not be up to the deal, or your wiring is just so far gone that we've just got to, even if I put a new cable in for your EVSE and a new switchboard, the rest of the house may in fact need it. The other thing is, if you've got a more modern house with circuit breakers, is there still spare room? Commonly, electricians put in the cheapest switchboard. They might only leave one spare slot, or there were spare slots, and you've ended up with adding things over the last 5 or 10 years to take up all the slots. So long as there's a bit more room nearby the switchboard, they can put in an extra little enclosure for the circuit breaker needed for your electric car charging. By the way, even if it ticks all the boxes and says, okay, to you that you may in fact be able to just put a EVSE in straight away, your electrician will do what's called a maximum demand calculation, and they'll work out how much current your house normally draws. We'll look at the fuse at the top of the eave or in the pit in front of your house, and they will go, yes, you've got enough spare capacity there, or you may need to dial back a little on the size of EVSE. And I know Jet Charge would do that sort of service, for instance, and they'll say, no, you can't do 32 amps, but you might be able to do 22 or 24. Okay, I'll briefly scoot through that. Actually, no, skip that one. Forget mode 1. Mode 2 is pretty much what you're working with, which is basically either a PowerPoint on a wall, and you plug in a portable EVSE, which has a little box that controls those electronics that I talked about earlier that talk to the car and turn it on and off. Or mode 3, where the box is bolted to the wall, so it's the fixed wall unit. So mode 4, by the way, is a DC, so we don't need to talk about that one today. So sometimes I'll talk about mode 2, mode 3, mode 2 is plugged in, mode 3 is bolted to the wall. Okay, AC charging basics, pretty much the standard plug that's used for charging an AC, so forget the DC side that Les was talking about earlier, that is Mini-keys or Type 2. It's a 3-phase standard, so you can actually charge 3-phase. BMWs, Renault Zoe's charge 3-phase, but most cars are single-phase. So they just use the single-phase pin and just don't worry about connecting the other two, but it has that option available. I've jokingly said that there's a charging speed war happening, just like there was the plug war, choosing between which plugs were going to be used. Plugs are pretty much settled, but it's the charging speed war now, so they're now some are doing 7, it used to be 3.6 kilowatt charging for the early Leafs, now they're 7, the Renault Zoe does 22, the BMW does 11 for 3-phase, Teslas are doing 11, it's just sort of hotting up. So it's just a charging speed war, I call it. I've said all that, AC, charging if you're charging at a normal power point, it's slow, but you'll get there. It's basically the emergency one that comes with the car, or most cars. The Renault Zoe doesn't come with a spare emergency charger, but it should only be used for emergencies and left in the boot, just like a spare wheel's left in the boot. You only fish it out for emergencies. I always recommend don't use the one that comes with the car for permanently charging, purely because the one day that you quickly unplug it, leave it in the carport and head off, that was a day you actually needed, just like taking the spare wheel out to give you some spare room, that was the day you actually needed it. That was the day you've left your emergency EVSE behind. So leave it in the boot. If you do want one, you think you only need a portable one to plug in, buy one extra and use that one at home. 3.6, that's 15 amp, the early Leafs, IMEVs, that's all they charge at anyway. So that will charge all EVs. 7.2, 7 around there, 7.4 will supply pretty much any EV on the road now, all the new ones. And they will pretty much all give you an overnight full charge. My Kona Electric, 9 hours at 7 kilowatts, that's fully charged from zero. 11 kilowatts, some cars are doing it, but not all. The BMW i3, the Renault Zoe, well, happily use the 11 if you give it to them, but that's now using three-phase. Most homes aren't three-phase. If you have a three-phase home, you've run the charging jackpot, so to speak, if you need the speed, because you don't have to do any changes to the wiring, it's just put it in. 22 kilowatt only at the moment. Some of the earlier Teslas do it, not anymore, and the Renault Zoe. And there is in the standard allowance for 40 kilowatts used overseas in Europe, but not here. No, I don't think there's any EVs in Australia that use that. In fact, I'm pretty certain there are none. Okay, we've now looked at the charging speeds, what you might want to be using at home. If you're only doing 30, 50 Ks a day, just plug it into a PowerPoint mail will be you want, but then you just BYO, have an spare EVSE at home. Where are you going to put it? As Les pointed out earlier, those charging ports could be anywhere. If they could put it under the car, they probably would, just to be different. I like your laugh, because it's just amazing. It's hysterical where they put them. Front, side, rear. Some of them in the front corner of the front back corner of the front mudguard. Where are you going to put it? You may have friends coming in with the cars or for the future. Put it somewhere that's useful for all of them. So just think about it. If you can only get into one angle, don't put it that only one sort of car, the one that you first get, will use it, and all of a sudden it won't reach any others. Best spot, I always recommend, don't charge the car in full sun. As Laz was saying, if the car battery gets hot, it will slow down. Same for EV, or AC, not quite as much so, but certainly it's best not to charge if the battery's getting really hot. Again, don't put it in a very cold spot. As you might notice or may not notice, mine is positioned on the west wall, because that's the only spot I could put it. So I just tend not to charge it on a really hot summer's afternoon. Again, it's not that bad for the battery, but it's just kinder to the battery if you don't sort of try and bash it around a bit by always charging in hot weather or cold weather. Again, if you've got no choice, exposed to the weather is fine, but then you need to choose one that can cope with that. Best practice suggestions are use a tether for home. Use a tethered lead, so you just unplug it, plug it in, put it back, as Laz has shown you. If they're public EVSCs, they get a lot of damage because they get driven over. So AC ones, the councils these days are putting what's called a BYO lead, where you bring your own lead and plug it into a socket. Much better idea. Look after your own lead. Much fewer OHS issues for the councils, so everybody's happy. But you do need to buy an extra lead. They're about $280 for that. As I said, put it in the best spot for both it and the car is best practice, but quite often you don't get a choice. And if you need it, you can get 5 or 8 metre leads are the general numbers, but remember you can actually select different size leads. There's some things, there's some EVSEs that you can bolt to the wall just there. Charging mode, 2 or 3, as I said, 2 is plug it into a PowerPoint, 3 is one of those fixed ones. Single or 3-phase, you've got 3-phase at home and you do 400 Ks a day, 3-phase could be handy even then though. 7 kilowatts, even my Kona will charge overnight at 9 hours. So you'd have to really be desperate to put in a 3-phase one. What type of lead? Tether to BYO? Up to you. There may be reasons. I'm experimenting with the BYO lead one at the moment just because I can. I'm an electrician. I can play with mine and change them around. I'll put a tethered lead back on soon. IP rating, that is important. I'll mention that more in the whole slide in a moment. Costs. If you're trickle charging, you're only doing 30-50 Ks a day, plugging it in, $50 for the socket or about $200 to $1,500 depending on your difficulties. You're probably not going to cause any problems unless you've got an old VRS wired fused switchboard, otherwise you get pretty safe. Mode 3, so that's your wall box type one. 700 to 2,000 is a fairly rough number, some are more, that's about the cheapest at 700. Similar-ish costs for the wiring. As I said, it can get more expensive if you start having to go under concrete or you're rewiring, all those sorts of things. If you really want to put in a level, you're going to start sort of hitting some boundaries on your wiring supply and your switchboards. And there's a few just sort of pictures of things there. Keeping it moving right along. IP ratings, I mentioned, international protection rating or ingress protection rating. If it's inside in the garage, pretty much any EVSE with any IP rating will do. An ordinary PowerPoint is fine. If it's outdoors but sheltered by a carport, IP53-ish is probably not a bad number. Your electrician will advise, but that's a sort of good one. Most EVSEs bolted to wall are about that sort of rating. If it's fully exposed, then you need a full 65 type rating. There's not a lot of, they're getting better. There are more and more EVSEs available on the market that have that high rating, but just double check. So don't buy the EVSE, give it to your electrician, say, I want it on the west wall, unsheltered, and they go, no, that's only IP53, you need to go up. Yes, any burning questions? Did I put my email address on there? I didn't. Okay, I'll give it out. evnews@bigpond.com. For some reason I forgot to put it on that slide. I've had it on every other one that I've done this week. And how much time have I managed to save there?
An hour and a half.
Okay, you're welcome. And I don't normally speak that fast, so my apologies for doing it.
Fantastic, Bryce. Well done. Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
And Bryce, where are you today? Which display are you in, the AEVA?
Be wandering around and mainly AEVA.
Yeah. So for those of you who are here who are considering a purchase of a car and you want a factivist, Bryce is the man to talk to because he's not aligned to any brands. He's been a journalist for a long time. He knows about every brand and everything he's ever published is online. And like he said, he's also an electrician, and his current role is the Safety and Occupational Health Manager at University for the Science and Technology Department, where they're working on EVs, and he tells me...
He's misdescribing me again, but anyway, I'll
that's still along those lines, and they haven't lost any buildings lately, just a couple of batteries, nothing too serious.
We're still looking at that student.
Yeah, when they have a bad day, everyone around them has a bad day. Thanks, mate, for doing that. Nice pickup.